Good morning. Return to love. Everybody's got a story. Oh my goodness. And Lord knows I've got mine. Oh my goodness. Yes. We have some incredible stories, do we not? That we have been carrying usually with us since childhood. Beliefs about ourselves, the way that we talk to ourselves, the messages that we may have gotten that formed those beliefs in the first place. And so this morning, talking about what if the sky is falling up? And the reason that I say that is that there is so much going on in the world right now. There is so much going on that, and there has been. This is not just the last week or the last 2 weeks. It's been going on for quite some time. And if we expand on that story, we can say it's been going on since the beginning of humanity. And yet, in this moment, in this place, that we've got so much access to so much information that it is overwhelming. There's no doubt about that. We don't deny that there is so much that we are bombarded with day in and day out. Whether it's music or news or entertainment or sports or what it might be, we have access to things around the globe 24/7. The studies that are happening now that have been going on is that the progress that we are making, evolving, that we are doing as human beings, our physiological stuff, our brains have not been able to catch up to everything that we are inventing and putting out there and being engaged with. And so there's this gap. There's this gap that feels very, very unsafe. And so indeed it does look like the sky is falling down. Everything is crumbling. Everything is falling apart. Individually, collectively. That's the appearance. That's the appearance. We're talking this month about paradox in Centers for Spiritual Living. And the paradox that we have as humans is, number one, we are imbued with this innate sense of curiosity and wonder and exploration and an urge, the divine urge to explore, to expand, to evolve, to invent, to create. That's how we're built. And yet we also have this protective device that wants to keep us safe. And the speed at which we are creating things, the speed at which we are inventing and evolving and finding solutions, and kind of looks like it's creating more problems and more problems and more problems. It goes after our nervous system. As I said, our physiological stuff has not caught up yet to the speed at which we are inventing things. And so it feels shaky. It feels scary. It makes us feel incredibly vulnerable. And our habit, our practice mental habit that came out of a very viable and very innate thing says, yeah, there's a lot to be afraid of in this world in this day. But what if the sky was actually falling up? We are studying the book, The Untethered Soul, right now. Tomorrow is our third class. If you haven't joined in, please feel free to do that. And there's a quote from The Untethered Soul that says, we normally try to solve our inner disturbances by protecting ourselves. Real transformation, real spiritual growth begins when we embrace our problems as agents for growth. And so the first key, the first tool in approaching all of these things is curiosity, is to go back to that innate thing that we have that wants to explore, that wants to say, well, what is this about? What is this teaching me? How is this helping me grow? We have the flip side of that, of course, which is free will, where we can say, nope, not today. Not today. I'm putting the covers over my head. I'm pulling the blinds. I'm locking the doors. I'm staying in. There's nothing wrong with taking a break. There is absolutely nothing wrong with taking a break and that self-care of giving ourselves some headspace to clear out and ask ourselves that question. That most deep question is, who am I and what am I doing here? What am I doing on the planet at this time? With all of the wonders, the natural wonders happening around us, yesterday being that the annular eclipse, what a crazy cool thing. And what an amazing time for us to pull back and observe the things that we have no control over. Absolutely none. All of our science, all of our investigation, all of our evolution, all of the technology, everything available to us gave us the date and the time that said this is when this is going to happen. We know how to track this now. For thousands of years, the evolution of observing the stars and the planets and everything that happens, that's part of the wonder as well. So it tells us when it's happening, and we can still have no control over it actually happening. There can be terror in that, and there can also be, I like to think, and I have this for myself, a sense of wonder. Like, wow, isn't it amazing that something, that force, that life force, that one presence created such amazing things for us to wonder about and to have curiosity about and to be awed, jaw-droppingly awed by things. It's a very long distance from that centered, joyful place of wonder to the incredible stories that we have and that we've built on year after year after year. I speak for that for myself. I don't know if any of you have that problem, but it's been a process to unravel, to open up chapters that I don't, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I would not necessarily have wanted to open up. But that's the thing about our growth. That's the thing about curiosity. There are two ways that we can live. Really, one is we keep going about our business and keep finding things that don't work and don't work and don't work and don't work, and our lives fall apart, and we say, what's going on? And we hang on, and we hang on even tighter, and we don't want people to know we're vulnerable, that we're screwing up, and we keep pulling it in. And that's so not the thing to do. That is not in service of our spiritual growth. It's not in service of our spiritual evolution. It's not in service to our expanded consciousness to be the expression of the presence in this time and space field. It's a level of awareness. It seems counterintuitive. We want to pull in. There's another quote from The Untethered Soul. It says, you will get to a point in your growth where you understand that if you protect yourself, you will never be free. That sounds counterintuitive as well, but it's actually the truth. If you've been through the experience, and I think most of us that come into New Thought, into this teaching, have had more than a few dark nights of the soul, where we realize our only option is to surrender, to let go and let God. There's a reason that phrase is a cliche. It's not a cliche, it's a truth. We can treat it as such. We can treat it, oh, I'm letting go and letting God. But until we actually go in to face the fears and really see that that old saying, the only thing we had to fear is fear itself. We terrorize ourselves with our stories, with our imaginations of what could happen, that future, what's coming. But that future stuff is based on what our experience of the past was. So the issue is we are not, most of the time, unless we are really, really practicing and doing our work, we are not living in the now. I love that story from Mark Nepo. The facade of a huge wall and a locked gate. That was one perspective. But the wise partner was the one that walked and walked and walked until he found an opening, found another opening, and the garden, the acres of gardens opened up to them, no restrictions whatsoever. That is our lives. When we put ourselves in front of everything, we get in our own way. We get in our own way so often until we bump up against the thing. That's that one way to live. It's like, I got to control it. If I hang on to it, if I do this, da-da-da-da-da-da. The other way is to change a thought. That sounds familiar, does it not? That's what this teaching is all about. Step back for a minute. Take a breath. Wonder. Find something to wonder about. What if? What if we, as Scripture says, what if we became like little children again? With that, all little children are is curious, asking questions, touching, feeling, exploring, looking, wondering where they fit in the grander scheme of things. They have not yet been taught that they must please other people, that they must do other things, that they must pull in their natural enthusiasm, their natural ability to see things really clearly. Little kids can point things out, can point out the obvious. And sometimes to adults that's very shocking, and we shame them and we blame them and we tell them they shouldn't be asking those questions, and starting to pile that story. So our work, in this teaching, is to begin pulling back. I'm deconstructing my defenses, dismantling my pride, making peace and mending fences with who I am inside. That is what returning to love is about. Love as the greatest force. Love is the greatest power in the universe. So what about this thing about vulnerability? Why consider that a strength? Because when we are in our truth, when we are fully accepting of who we are with all of our mistakes, our faults, our foibles, when we own it, when we stand it and say, yep, I'm human, I did that. We make our amends where we need to make our amends. We clean up our messes. We admit to making a mistake. Nobody can tell us otherwise. Nobody can foist blame on us when we accept our responsibility. Nobody can shame us. They try. But when we are standing in this truth and this power, saying, I am an individualized expression of the one, there are no mistakes. I'm learning, I'm evolving, I'm growing, I'm expanding. I'm doing my very best to be even more of that, more joyful, more abundant, more loving, more compassionate, more forgiving of self. To be able to stand in the world and say, this is how I see things. We know there is pushback. There is going to be pushback. We look to the centuries where Copernicus and Galileo, about the position of the sun, the position of the earth was not flat. They had an innate urge to figure it out. They watched the stars. They watched all of the things that brought them to those conclusions. And the first thing that happened was the established story condemned them both for saying, you can't say this. This is not what our God said that life is like. And yet here we are, all of these centuries later, being able to wonder still at something like an eclipse because of the work they did. They were willing to stand out. They were willing to put their lives on the line because they were so connected to Source in the idea. They trusted, this is what's going on. This is what I observe. This is what I can expand upon. This is what I can teach other people. And so it is us, it is our call to change our perspective. One thought away. One thought can change everything from our story that we make up. There was a young man on his way to work driving down the freeway one day, and his cell phone rang, and it was his wife. And his wife said, "Honey, are you on I-35?" And he said, "Yes." And she said, "Oh, I just watched the news, and there was on the news, there's some idiot driving the wrong way on the freeway. I just want you to be safe out there, honey." And he said, "Okay." He goes, "Oh, it's not just one going the wrong way, it's hundreds." He was the one driving the wrong way on the freeway. But in his perception, everybody else was wrong. It's that one little piece of information is all we need sometimes. So how do we get there? Curiosity. Standing back and asking the question, what is this trying to teach me? Who am I in this moment? Who do I want to be in this moment? And be playful with it. Spirit is immensely playful. Immensely playful. And when we get in our practice of dancing with it, dancing with the light, dancing with spirit, dancing with love, all of those judgments and those things, we stop looking at the things that we do as mistakes, and we start reframing it a different perspective, that these things are here to teach me. There are lessons to be learned here. So it doesn't have to be grabbing, holding, trying to being afraid of being vulnerable. It's standing in the world and saying, yeah, I'm trying this. The people who are going to give you the most guff are the ones who are not in the ring doing the work. Have you noticed that? The ones that you meet along the way who are doing their work, who are willing to try things out, to experiment, to expand, to grow, to heal, those are the ones that we naturally gravitate to. It's like, oh, they're doing it. Whoa, how are they doing it? I want to figure that out too. If I see them making this progress in the world, I want to know how to do that too. Our tendency is to focus on the ones who are giving us a lot of grief. Our work is to stand in our truth and say, okay, as soon as you figure this out, doing your work, then come talk to me. But the rest of the time, I'm doing my thing. I'm doing my work. And I'm doing it with love. I'm doing it with compassion. I'm doing it with joy. I'm doing it with a sense of wonder and awe. Because I've learned in my practice that when I just focus on the what and let God take care of the how, it's a pretty sweet dance. It's a whole different perspective. So I invite you this week to lean into the wonder, to say, what if the sky is falling up? Forget about the laws of gravity. You know it's a metaphor. But that simple question, what if I looked at this differently? What would change in my life? That's your assignment for this week. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. It has been wonderful to share all of this with you today. So thank you and namaste. Blessings.